Lesson 152 of A Course in Miracles. Welcome to the Qigong support for A Course in Miracles students. I am Judith and you're at the Lucid Mind Center. How this is going to work, we're going to read this lesson together and we're going to contemplate it together in this little evening session which I'm doing with you today. And at the end I'm going to suggest Qigong classes which are suitable for this particular lesson which I have recorded already for A Course in Miracles students. Before we start, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. And at the end, let me know where you're watching from and how long you've been with A Course in Miracles. Your feedback is very important to me. Let's begin. Lesson 152. The power of decision is my own. Very important. It's a very important lesson to learn. No one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. No one suffers pain except his choice elects this state for him. Very important. No one suffers pain except his choice. His choice elects this state for him. That means it's a state of mind. No one can grieve, nor fear, nor think him sick unless these are the outcomes that he wants. And no one dies without his own consent. Now this is deep stuff. And no one dies without his own consent. I mean, this sentence alone is something to worth meditating on for several days. No one dies without his own consent. Nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. It's actually amazing, these particular sentences. Here is your world, complete in all details. Here is its whole reality for you, and it is only here salvation lies. You may believe this position is extreme and too inclusive to be true. Yet can truth have exceptions? If you have the gift of everything, can loss be real at all? Can pain be part of peace or grief or joy? Can fear and sickness enter in a mind where love and perfect holiness abide? Truth must be all-inclusive if it be truth at all. Accept no opposite and no exceptions. For to do so is to contradict the truth entirely. And here is the salvation really. This is where we come out of our misery. It's because we really have to set in the day, in the morning, when we wake up, we already have to set how we want to experience our day. And I have been using affirmations where I have got a whole list. I have got like 4 pages of affirmations. And when I actually start my day with those affirmations and end my day, and in between the day, I read these affirmations. I do my sport, I do my Qigong, I do my meditations with it. My days actually turn out wonderful. And then for some reason, ego thoughts come into it again. And I'm like, I don't need all this. I have to do this. I have to do the other. And I forget to retrain my mind, to prepare my mind for the day. And then I slowly drip, fall off into misery. And I'm being honest with you because I think I need to experience it for some reason. For some reason, it needs to happen to me. And I am accepting it. Here it says, salvation is the recognition that truth is true and nothing else is true. This you have heard before, but may not yet accept both parts of it. Without the first, the second has no meaning. But without the second, is the first no longer true? Let's read that one more time. Salvation is the recognition that the truth is true and nothing else is true. So this is the two parts. This you have heard before, but may not yet accept both parts of it. Without the first, the second has no meaning, but without the second is the first no longer true. Truth cannot have an opposite. This cannot be too often said and thought about. For if what is not true is true as well as what is true, then part of truth is false. And truth has lost its meaning. Nothing but the truth is true, and what is false is false. I mean, this is all logic. It's like, this is the first thing when we learned in mathematics. Well, it wasn't the first thing, it was higher up in the classes when I was about 14, 15. The opposite of black is not white. It is not black. The opposite of something is not what we think is the opposite. The opposite of whatever it is that which is not that. So the opposite of black is that which is not black. So everything else which is not black, this is the opposite, or the opposite of white. The opposite of white is not black. The opposite of white is everything that is not white. This is like a mathematical equation. So this is a little bit what it says here. That what is true, and that what is not true cannot be true. And yet we are constantly mixing it up. We are constantly having level confusions, and we are constantly want to make that what is false true and pretend that that what is true is actually false. We want to pretend that, for example, let me give you an example. We want to pretend that we are actually not divine beings. We are pretending that all the time. We are pretending that we are only flesh and blood, and that when this body dies, it's all over. This is what we're pretending. And this is our truth. But that cannot be truth, because if we are divine beings, we are eternal. So we live forever. So this is the simplest of distinctions, yet the most obscure. But not because it is difficult. It is a difficult distinction to perceive. It is concealed behind a vast array of choices which do not appear to be entirely your own. And thus the truth appears to have some aspects that belie consistency, but do not seem to be but contradictions introduced by you. As God created you, you must remain unchangeable with transitory states, by definition false. And that includes all shifts in feeling, alterations in conditions of the body and the mind, in all awareness and in all response. Let's repeat that again. As God created you, as God created us, you must remain unchangeable with transitory states, by definition false. That means that if God created us, we are always the way God created us. We must remain unchangeable with transitory state, by definition false. And that includes all shifts in feeling, alterations in conditions of the body and the mind, in all awareness and in all response. This is the all-inclusiveness which sets the truth apart from falsehood, and the false kept separate from the truth as what it is. Is it not strange that you believe to think you made the world you see is arrogance? So we think that the world we see, to think that we have made that, this is arrogant. So if I take responsibility for the world I see, or if I even say that you are responsible for the world you see, you both think that I'm arrogant. And who on earth do I think who I am? If I say this to you, or if you say this to somebody else, no, you're responsible for the world you see. Then the other person might say, well, you're actually arrogant for thinking that. So let me read this one sentence one more time. Is it not strange that you believe to think you made the world you see is arrogance, because God made it not. God did not make the world you see. Of this you can be sure. What can he know of the ephemeral, the sinful and the guilty, the afraid, the suffering and lonely, and the mind that lives within a body that must die? You but accuse him of insanity to think he made a world where such things seem to have reality. He is not mad. We are. Yet only madness makes a world like this. And I've just been watching the news and heard what's going on in the US and heard about what's going on in all the rest of the world, and we are definitely mad. To think that God made chaos, contradicts his will, invented opposites to truth, and suffers death to triumph over life, all this is arrogance. Humility would see at once these things are not of him. Let's say this again. Humility would see at once that what is going on in the world is not made by God. And can you see what created, and can you see what God created not? To think you can is merely to believe you can perceive what God willed not to be. And what could be more arrogant than this? There's another sentence needs to be thought about. So to think you can is you can. To think that you can see what God made not, what God created not, is merely to believe you can perceive what God willed not to be. It means that if we actually see the bad, the sad, the suffering, then we are focusing on the wrong thing. And what could be more arrogant than this? Because then we are being arrogant because we are focusing on that which is not God, which is not love, which is not light, and making ourselves miserable. That is kind of an arrogance. Let us today be truly humble and accept what we have made as what it is. The power of decision is our own. Decide but to accept your rightful place as co-creator of the universe. Let me repeat this. Decide but to accept your rightful place as co-creator of the universe, and all you think you made will disappear. The power of decision is my own. So when I accept this, then I accept as well that I am co-creating the universe, and all you think you made will disappear. What rises to awareness then will be all that there ever was, eternally as it is now. And it will take the place of self-deception made but to usurp the altar to the Father and the Son. Let's read this one more time. And it will take the place of self-deceptions which are made to take over the altar between the Father and the Son. The altar is the exchange, is the connection point between the Father and the Son. I would almost say this is the Holy Spirit. This is the altar where you are laying your things down and say, can you please take care of this? And then this gets cleaned up, and our holy self, our Holy Spirit makes it clear for us, cleans it up and says, okay, here, this is how you got to do it. So it's the self-deception which is trying to usurp the altar. So today we will practice humility, abandoning the false pretense by which the ego seeks to prove it arrogant. So the ego is trying to prove that the humility you're taking is actually being arrogant. And the way the Course is saying that we have to be humble, let us today be truly humble and accept what we have made as what it is. This is a world which is not the will of God. So today we practice true humility, abandoning the false pretense by which the ego seeks to prove it arrogant. Only the ego can be arrogant. That's true. But truth is humble in acknowledging its mightiness, its changelessness, and its eternal wholeness, all encompassing. God's perfect gift to his beloved Son. We lay aside the arrogance which says that we are sinners, guilty and afraid, ashamed of what we are, and lift our hearts in true humility instead to him who has created us immaculate, like to himself in power and in love. The power of decision is our own, and we accept of him that which we are, and humbly recognize the Son of God within us. So we lay aside all arrogance and we lift our hearts in true humility instead to him. We remember that light within us, which has created us immaculate, like to himself in power and in love. So we have got the power and the love and the light within us. That's who we actually truly are. The power of decision is our own, and we accept of him that which we are and humbly recognize the Son of God. To recognize God's Son implies as well that all self-concepts have been laid aside and recognized as false. The arrogance has been perceived, and in humility, the radiance of God's Son, his gentleness, his perfect sinlessness, his Father's love, his right to heaven, and release from hell are joyously accepted as our own. Now do we join in glad acknowledgement that lies are false and only truth is true. We think of truth alone as we arise and spend 5 minutes practicing its ways, encouraging our frightened minds with this. This is the sentence we gotta write down. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be, which is the light of the world, the extension of love, the powerful extension of a divine being having a human experience. Then we will wait in silence, giving up all self-deception as we humbly ask ourselves that he reveal himself to us. And he who never left will come again to our awareness, grateful to restore his home to God as it was meant to be. In patience, wait for him throughout the day, and hourly, every hour, invite him with the words with which the day began, which is, the power of decision is my own. Concluding it with this same invitation to yourself. Constantly remembering that the power of decision is your own. And that actually is very, very helpful if you write down yourself a whole affirmation. Like I have got a 4-page affirmation where I'm writing down all the different ways I want to see the day. And the first half page of that affirmation is actually all about the experience and the connection between me and the divine self, that I am the holy child of God, that I am experiencing this love if I choose so. I'm actually going to read it to you in one of the next videos. I'm going to read my affirmation to you, share it with you, so that maybe you can change it and adjust it to your needs. In patience, wait for him throughout the day and hourly invite him with the words with which the day began, concluding it with this same invitation to yourself. God's voice will answer, for he speaks to you and for your Father. He will substitute the peace of God for all your frantic thoughts, the truth of God for self-deceptions, and God's Son for your illusions of yourself. Beautiful. So it's almost our duty to make sure that we feel good. It's almost our duty to make sure that we are feeling peace and kindness and love, because all minds are connected. So when we are lighting up our own mind, we are bringing more hope, even if we don't know who we are actually touching with our light. We also don't need to know that. What we only need to know is to trust that when we light up, our light spreads. It's like when you switch on the light, it lights up the room. So when you light up yourself, you light up the world, because you are the light of the world. But if you dim it, if you close yourself in that ego hole, then you're not serving yourself and you're not serving the world, and you are co-creating the universe. The universe is patiently waiting for us to wake up. It's patiently waiting for us to take our rightful place in this game, in this co-creation, in this work of co-creation, in this exercise of co-creation. This is what we're doing here. We have the need to create all the time. We have the need to co-create, and our unhappiness starts when we are dimming that need for creation, when we don't allow ourselves to create. And creation is expression and expansion of love. So let's try that today. So, like I said, I would always suggest that you write this sentence down. If not, put the book next to you. So when you do your meditation, or when you do the Qigong class with me now, that you can actually read it once I remind you, I prompt you in the Qigong class to read your lesson. Or you can put it on you can write it down on a big piece of paper by hand. When you do that, then you actually gonna help your motoric, you're gonna help your body, you're gonna help your mind. Your body is actually gonna help your mind to remember the phrase. Let me read it to you one more time. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. And then you can, when I prompt you to remember your lesson and listen to your higher self, ask for clarifications what that actually could be. So for this lesson, it's suggesting a 5-minute meditation. So I'm suggesting short meditations for you. You can do a standing or a seated. So here is a seated meditation, which is a very short one, but very powerful Qigong meditation. Here you have got a standing meditation, also a short one, where you connect to heaven. And here you have got the Qigong classes where you can choose one which you prefer, if you want a longer one. Enjoy.